And there was this very obnoxious sort of white supremacist on there, kind of Charlie Kirk wannabe. Had the same demeanor, same typical sort of aggressive style. They use aggression tactically to flood your limbic system, so your prefrontal cortex goes offline and your amygdala takes over. You should pay attention to that. Blood flow shifts from the reasoning centers of your brain to the motor cortex, your working memory buffer, the space where you, in your brain, the space where you juggle facts, your logic chains, rhetorical structure, and so on, that shrinks. So you forget your data. You stumble over your words and you get flustered. They interrupt you, they cut you off, they raise their voice, and so on. And it isn't just because they are rude and obnoxious and they have no manners. It's not just because of that. It's because they're wrong. And they know that in any calm, reasonable discussion, this will become blatantly obvious. So this is the approach they take. They always claim to be people who love facts and who love logic. Facts don't care about your feelings and so on. But their whole style is tactically intended to sabotage the discussion of facts and logic. Because always, they cannot actually contend with facts and logic. They pretend that they want that kind of a discussion, but they absolutely actually want to derail reasoning, and they want you to be emotional. You should take note of that. This is a patented Western approach. This is how they do. Always aggressive, always confrontational, always trying to, by hook or by crook, trying to undermine actual, reasoned, calm, intellectual discussion, while always claiming that they're all about rationality. This is the West in microcosm. So anyway, this white supremacist was sort of rattling off all the standard talking points that he got from some, KKK subreddit or what have you. This white supremacist was arguing that white supremacy isn't a thing. And he said, give me an example of white supremacy today in 2025. The question is an example. Your denial is an example of white supremacy. The fact that you think that literally centuries of experience right up until this very moment while I'm speaking right now, the fact that you think that the lived misery of millions of people for hundreds of years, from your racism, your bigotry, your hatred, your violence, your exploitation, your pillage, and your plunder, you think that all of that is negated by the power of your denial, the entitlement. You think that we're going to watch you, you think that we're going to listen to you, literally spewing venom against everyone else, against Jews, against Muslims, against so-called black people, against immigrants, against Asians, against Indians, against basically anyone except white Anglo-Saxons. And somehow we're supposed to understand from all of that we got you wrong, and you're really a fair-minded, unbiased believer in human equality. Come on. And if we listen to all of your hatred and understand from that you are in fact a racist, white supremacist, bigoted, mouth-breathing, knuckle-dragging, hate-filled heathen, if that's what we take, then you'll just say, well, it's because we have low IQs. An example of white supremacy, you're the embodiment of white supremacy. It's the racial equivalent of malignant narcissism. It's that fake superiority of the wholly inadequate, morally inadequate, intellectually inadequate, culturally inadequate, spiritually inadequate, developmentally inadequate, and trying to act superior. The only thing that you excel at is pretending otherwise. And if you interpret what I'm saying, by the way, let me clarify this. If you interpret what I'm saying as so-called reverse racism, no. I'm not even talking about it racially. You are. I don't attach your crimes to your skin color. You do. What I indict are your deeds. But you take that as an attack on so-called white people because you've got that on the brain. I don't. So-called white and so-called black is only a thing because you made it a thing and you insist on keeping it a thing. That puts you in a position of having to make European and American crimes like it's an inherent aspect of so-called whiteness. So that means that you can't repent from your crimes because you think that that would mean basically admitting that criminality is encoded in your DNA. That's what your sick theories and your ideas and your sick culture did to you. You racialize everything. So you can't even be honest about your history. Because you think that if you're honest about your history, then that would be a racial indictment. So for the sake of defending your so-called whiteness, okay, you either defend or you deny or you dismiss or you shift the blame for all of your horrific and shameful history. You don't have to do that. In fact, you have to not do that. Racialization is a sickness that you inflicted upon yourself, and then you inflicted it upon the rest of the world. So now you feel the need to try to side with or be loyal to or align yourself with literally unspeakable crimes, just because the people who committed those crimes were wearing the same color skin as you. You created this atrocious notion that so-called race is actually a meaningful classification of human beings, and that it's hierarchical, and that it denotes all of the sorts of qualities and traits that are actually only present in a human being by their conscious choices, not by genetic coding. You know, like the choice to be decent, to be peaceful, or to be indecent, or to be violent, the choice to be kind or the choice to be cruel. You act like this is all based on their skin color. These are not immutable qualities, like your melanin composition or your bone structure. These are from conscious choice. I'm not making an indictment of white people. I'm making an indictment of evil people. But what you hear is white people. So you hear me calling you immutably evil. That's your philosophy, not mine. We're Muslims. We categorize people according to their beliefs and according to their conscious behavior, according to their actions, not by the texture of their hair or the shape of their nose or their skin tone. That's ludicrous. So you think that you cannot rebuke the whole brutal history of your countries because you imagine that that would mean you are rebuking your so-called race, that's very important to you, and therefore you would be rebuking yourself and your whole identity. And that's what makes you integrate that whole brutal history into your identity. You understand? That is as monstrous as it is unnecessary. You can choose to associate yourself with those who do good, those who are just, and those who have been victimized, and those who have been wronged. You can do that, even if their so-called race is different from yours, and even if their oppressors were from your so-called race. Choosing to align and choosing to affiliate on the basis of values and beliefs and actions, that's what you can do. You can use that as the criteria for categorizing people. That's sensible. And then you'll never be stuck trying to defend horrible behavior. You'll never be stuck trying to justify crimes. You'll never be stuck denying factual history. But see, this is why I've said repeatedly, talking about the West, I've said repeatedly, your culture let you down. Your so-called civilization let you down. They wired their societies. They wired your societies so badly. They programmed you so badly. And it goes so deep that at this point, you're basically malware. You know, you enter into a conversation and everybody's antivirus protection software goes off. Threat detected. You're radioactive. You're radioactive, and still you act like the solution to your radioactivity is more uranium. Your so-called civilization infected you with so many false ideologies, so many malignant characteristics and traits, so many bad habits, so many mental and thinking disorders, that your civilization doomed you to disgrace. And that's a shame. It's a shame. But it's no longer anyone else's problem but yours. This is what you really have to understand. Not only is it not the rest of the world's responsibility to fix you, they're not even obliged to tolerate you. And this goes back to what I've talked about before, about the necessity of erecting barriers around yourself and around your discourse and around your interactions. Because right from the outstart, on that space that I was listening to, that white supremacist, on that X space, he was, and obviously he was a bad faith actor. Not only do these types of people not want to engage sincerely in discussion. They don't even have the ability to do so. They're not capable of sincerity. And no one should feel reluctant about muting those people. They're disruptive. Like I said, the way they engage is tactically designed to try to undermine rational discourse. You need to get them out. Understand, no one is entitled to be in your conversations. No one is entitled to inject themselves and inject their nonsense and inject their aggressive ignorance into your mind. I said they're radioactive. They should be quarantined. Understand? They have lost the privilege of participating in serious discussions. They've lost the privilege of being listened to. For Muslims, for people in the global south, for people who are genuinely serious about social issues, issues of justice, international affairs, and so on, humanity, okay, you need to prove your own seriousness by expelling unserious people from your spaces. It's like protecting yourself from the waswasa of shaitan, honestly. It's no different. Build your community and understand that part of building your community includes knowing who doesn't belong there, knowing whose presence in your community is destructive and disruptive. Not letting these kinds of people come into your spaces isn't some kind of violation of their rights. No, their invasion and infiltration of your spaces is a violation of your rights. Don't let them contaminate the intellectual hygiene of your discourse. They've got plenty of other places they can go to spew their rancor. So ask yourself, why are they coming to you? Why are they coming to your spaces and your conversations? It's disrespectful, but it's intentional disrespect. You understand? It's actually a test to see whether or not you respect yourself enough to kick them out. No, don't let them hijack your platform for their hate and their ignorance and their blame shifting. Don't do that. Don't let your platforms, don't let your discourse, your discussions, your conversations, and so on become vehicles for their propaganda. You're building macro level realities through realities at the micro level. You need to be strict. You need to be vigilant. And you need to be serious. And you need to police the quality of what you expose yourself to and what you expose others to through what you allow on your platform. Think about it. Why do you think that these people are coming into our spaces in the first place? Why do you think they're coming onto our platforms specifically? You notice they're coming into pro-Palestinian spaces, trying to spin narratives to exonerate themselves because they're getting squeezed. They're trying to cut a deal with the DA. It's like that. They're coming into pro-Palestinian spaces because they want to cut a deal. They want to get themselves off the hook by making a direct appeal, by making direct contact with the people who are prosecuting the genocide in the public sphere. It's clear as day. That's why they're coming. Otherwise, they would never have condescended to talk to any of us before. Honestly, it's because they're getting squeezed right now. Their feet are to the fire. So now you see white supremacists, racist, Western exceptionalists suddenly showing up in Muslim spaces, suddenly showing up in pro-Palestinian spaces. You and I know that they hate us. They hate people like us. They don't believe in anything that we believe in. But here they are, coming to our doors to plead their case. And because they are so inherently dishonest, so inherently cowardly, they can't even plead their case on the basis of them being good, but on the basis of other people being worse. Understand? Trying to misdirect our anger, trying to throw us off the scent. That's the only reason they're showing up at our doors, on our platforms, in our conversations. You know, you have two types of these. You have the neo-Nazi type, who tells you, you know, that the problem is only the Jews. And then there's that other type, that George Galloway, Scott Ritter, colonizer activist type, the camouflage neocon type, who tells you that the whole problem is the Arabs and the Arab rulers and so on. These are the same. These two types are the same. All they're trying to do is exonerate America and exonerate the West, exonerate so-called white people. Honestly, imagine letting your enemy tell you who your enemy is and you believe him. You must think we're stupid. Truly, you never do right, you only ever gaslight. It's a shame that you're like that, but you are like that. And unless and until you're better, you know, because you should try to be better, but unless until you are better, you have no place at our tables.